All good? Okay, great. All right, everybody. It's great to see you. I can't wait to see so many of you in person. Stacy, I wish I could see you in person. I'm ready for you to come to Israel. Enough already.
Thanks, Sally.
Enough already. All right. So we have that. And then I should say that the next week we will not be there for Shabbat. We're going to be in West Rogers Park, but Eve's family's there, and we're going to have a Hanukkah, Yosef's bar mitzvah, and meet Eve's family celebration. We're going to spread it out, but we are planning to celebrate all of this Saturday night because everybody knows Shabbat gets out ridiculously early, something like 5:30.
On their birthdays.
What?
Even Gadi's birthday.
Oh, their birthday. It's not just their family here. It's their birthday. Thank you. That's right. So definitely that's Saturday night, not the first week that we'll be there, but the next one. Okay, so let's get right to learning since I want to honor everybody's hour time slot. I know that some of you are really, truly in a lunch break, and I want to make sure I honor that and make sure I give us time to talk. So let's begin now. We're in the fourth Mishnah. Just to give a little sense of history, we are in the era called the Zugot. This was, I think, 5 generations, maybe 300 years, 5 generations of sages. And you're going to see that most of chapter 1 and maybe some of chapter 2 are 2 rabbis who are speaking. They are the Nasi, the prince, and the Av Beit Din, the head of the courts. This is from the men of the Great Assembly. And but I think what's most important for our historical understanding, what's most critical is that Rabbi Yossi ben Yochanan of Yerushalayim, this era was pretty much exactly around the era when the Hashmonayan revolt happened against the Greeks. So don't forget that during the whole Greek hegemony over the Jewish people were still in Jerusalem. It was during the Second Temple era. So they had their temple, but they were dominated by Greek rulership, and they were also very affected, not just dominated by Greek rulership, but also very affected by the cultural vibes of Greece. It's so important to understand that. You could just even look at our own culture and see how is Judaism affected by common culture? How has our cultural values in our larger world affected the Jewish population? You can look no farther than our own immediate circumstances to see how deeply culture affects the Jewish people, the greater culture. And in Greece, it was no different. And there was a very strong group called the Misyavnim, or the Hellenists. These were Jews that really assimilated proudly and wholly into Greek culture. So the reason I'm bringing this up is just to give you a little bit of history. This is right during the time when, or around, I don't know exactly during the time, but around the time of the Jewish revolt, the Maccabean revolt against the Greeks, which is very relevant to Hanukkah's story, and also to understand that the Greeks, at least in the beginning stages, did not want to kill the Jewish people. They weren't Hitler. They weren't even Haman in the Purim story, who wanted to create genocide in the Jewish people. They really wanted the Jewish people to assimilate. They really wanted to create spiritual destruction amongst the Jewish people. Now, we're not going to get so into that, but it's really, really fascinating and also very critical era to understand, because it's very relevant for the times that we live in today. But the reason I'm bringing it up for the purpose of our Mishnah is that what we're going to learn in this Mishnah is very relevant to today and was very relevant then, which is, how do you learn Torah or learn in such a way that it actually changes you, that it actually affects change on the deepest level? It's pretty clear that Rav Yosef ben Yochanan, is distinguishing Greek culture from Jewish culture, from how Greece values the academic process, from the process of learning, to how Judaism sees what the purpose of learning is altogether. So there is a dichotomy, there's a distinguishing between the Jewish approach to what it means to learn and the Greek approach to what it means to learn. And that's really kind of at the background of, or the historical background of our Mishnah. But this Mishnah, Julie, you can share the page. This Mishnah really, I think what's most important is that we take away from this how can I make my Torah enter into my whole essence? I learn something and I walk away and I'm the same person, then I didn't really learn it from a Jewish perspective. Now that's not always true in academic learning. Academic learning doesn't demand of you that you bring it into such a point that you change your character, that you actually change yourself. Judaism demands this of us. It's called Kinyan HaTorah. How do you not just learn it, but acquire it? How do you acquire Torah? How do you learn in such a way that after you've learned any given thing, you are different? You are actually different. So I'm going to read the Mishnah in Hebrew, and then we'll take it apart in English. Yossi ben Yoezer ish Sareda, Yossi ben Yochanan ish Yerushalayim, Kiblu mehem. Yossi ben Yoezer ish Sareda omer, Yehi beitcha beit vad lechachamim. Let your house be a meeting place for sages. V'heve mitabek be'afar raglehem, and sit, or it's really not, mitabek does not really mean sit. It really means like squirm or wrestle. Sit, squirm, wrestle, we'll learn what that means, in the dust of their feet, dust at their feet. V'heve shote b'tzama et divrehem, and with thirst drink in their words. Let your house be a meeting place for the sages. Cleave to the dust of their feet and drink thirstily their words. So the distinguishing here of what the cultural pressure of Greece and the value of what Judaism means when they say learn Torah, learn, can't be overstated. And somehow it's symbolized in the role of one's home. What does it mean? My house, what are you bringing my house into this? Let my house be a meeting place for the sages. What does that mean? Am I supposed to host Torah classes? What does my house have to do with it? And by extension, what does my private life have to do with it? My house, beitcha, very often in the Talmud, the word for bayit, house, is really a reflection of oneself, that one is their home. That means many different things. But what we have here is let them in. Let them in your home. Now, this is something that Jews, as they've wrestled in history and in our times now, how Jewish do I want to be? How Jewy do I want to be? How deeply do I want it to go in? Do I have different parts of me? Do I live a compartmentalized existence where I do my Jewish thing? And I'm not saying it judgmentally. This is in us all, where I do my Jewish thing and then I live my life separate from it. Am I relating to it almost as a dilettante? Where a dilettante would say, like, I take this class and I go to here and then I do this and I have my home and not, and these and they don't, and there's not necessarily a unification of all my activities. So it can't just mean, this is our fourth Mishnah, it can't just mean have Torah classes at your house, have sages at your house. What it really, I think, actually on a very simple level, it means the simple is always very important to state. We should never just dismiss the simple. On a simple level, it means make sure that Torah is taught in the walls of your home. If you ever have an opportunity to host a class, host it, especially if you're a parent and your children will never forget. I think I remember just learning this with some of the women in JWRP, and they kind of had like an aha moment, which was like, yeah, like I'm going to host, even if my kids are like, supposed to go to sleep, but they're upstairs and they're listening, they won't forget that, mom and dad hosted a Torah class. They put a value on that. They made their home a center for Torah. So the simple shouldn't be dismissed. But on a deeper level, what Yossi ben Yoezer of Tzareda and Yossi ben Yochanan of Yerushalayim are saying is, let them in. Let them into your home. Let them into your self. Let them in. Let the words of Torah and the teaching of Torah and the identity of Torah penetrate all aspects of your material life. Live it holistically. Don't relate to it as a dilettante who goes to a class, but bring it in. Do something to make it part of your holistic identity. Now, this was something Jews have wrestled with from time immemorial, but there was a very, very famous 19th century maskil. Maskil is the word for Haskalah, which was the Enlightenment in Germany, and which also to a certain degree affected Eastern Europe. It was very, very big after the French Revolution, the Haskalah, the Enlightenment, primarily in Germany. And there were many Jews who said, many very influential Jews who said, oh, you should definitely do Jew. You should definitely do the Jewish thing, but do it with the doors closed and the windows shut. In an effort to be German, an effort to make it in German society, and it is important to mention that Jews really did make it in German society. Before we were systematically annihilated, we were totally accepted and revered, and we were the professionals. It was one of the heydays of Jewish assimilation and success pre-Holocaust. It's unbelievable to think about that, but it's very true. So Yehuda Leib Gordon said, if you want to do Jewish, just don't do it outside. Outside, be a German. Be a German on the street, be a Jew in your home. And this affected the Jewish psyche, the modern Jewish psyche very much. We're still wrestling with it today in America. And in fact, a lot of anti-Semitism or discomfort, I would say, with maybe the very, very overtly Orthodox, the Hasidic, the ultra-Orthodox, I hate that word, but the ultra-Orthodox, a lot of it is like on some level, a discomfort with the overtly Jewish Jewishness of being a full brazen Jew on the outside. So this is saying the antithesis of what Yehuda Leib Gordon said, which is be a Jew in your home, be a Jew outside of it. Don't live a compartmentalized existence, or phrased positively, take a step forward in making your Judaism penetrate all aspects of your material life, from the books you buy, to what you do with your philanthropic money, to the conversations that you have, to the way you spend your time. Allow it to penetrate your home, remembering that a human being is their home. Let it in. So on the most simple level, it is your, especially children, but even you, make your house where don't be shy. That's another point here. Don't be shy, don't be timid. Let Torah scholars in, create a home that's filled with teaching and the value of Torah. But on a deeper level, this is also coming to tell us is, in Judaism, There's no concept of when I'm in the sanctuary, I pray and I'm somewhat reverent and I'm kind of God conscious when I enter the four walls of the sanctuary. But in my little personal fiefdom where I reign supreme, it's kind of not so relevant. There's no, really Judaically, there's no outside. There really is no dichotomy or division between inside and outside. And that's why we're going to learn in later on in Pirkei Avot, it talks about that your outsides should be reflective of your insides. That your outside of, this is very, very relevant to the Hanukkah story, but we don't have really time to get into that. But there really isn't an outside. Now, the human being craves independence and wants there to be a little space where Hashem isn't. We want to reign supreme in our little space, but Judaism comes to tell us the truth is it's about all of you. Your home represents you. It also represents all your material aspirations. Infuse it with a consciousness of a love of God. This is antithetical to Greek culture. Greek culture was very, very much about the study of wisdom, of knowledge for its own sake, for the pursuit of academic knowledge, the pursuit of theology, of philosophy, for its own sake, for the pursuit of it, for the pursuit of knowledge in and of itself, but not going in. And I would say from a Jewish perspective, if you read a book, like, Hannah has this really cool book that she showed the group. If Hannah, I don't see you right now, but if Hannah reads that book and then she doesn't then say, how am I going to grow through the chapter that I just read? Okay, what did I just read? What do I think about it? What challenges me? How could I grow from it? That's Judaism. And it's very antithetical to the pursuit of knowledge just for the sake of pursuing knowledge. There's a very interesting story. I've heard it said in many, many different ways. I've heard it said about Aristotle, Bertolt Brecht, and then I heard another story about, so I don't know what's true, what's not true, but I'll say it anyway. I'll say one version of the story that I've heard, that there were two Jewish, they were imprisoned in the in Russia during the war. And after the war, they came back to Berlin and they found themselves in a university with a German professor who was lecturing somehow on the danger of smoking. This doesn't really make sense, but this is what I read, while smoking a cigarette. And they, after the class, they went up to him and said, Dr. Professor, are you not, you're talking about the dangers of smoking while you're smoking a cigarette. And he turns to them and he says, if I were just to lecture on geometry, would I have to become a triangle? Would I have to do, like, okay, I'm lecturing on something. Must I be that too? Do I have to become that too? I think in our times, we can really respect and understand that the goal is transformation. The goal is personal transformation. And that's why the first part of our Mishnah is get in there, like get in the game, bring them into your world, allow their wisdom to permeate your material life, your very, very home. It's not, probably the most like easy to understand metaphor is that of a match, that if you want to transfer the flame, if you want something to kick in, you need proximity. You really need proximity. So in order for the match to transfer the flame from a candle, you have to get close. So the first part of how to acquire Torah is allow it into your home, allow it to infuse your material life, be almost vigilant that when you learn something, you ask, how does it affect me? What's one way it could affect my personality, my views, my my attitudes? How did it challenge me? So, there's a lot of conversation about now, I mean, now more than ever with Facebook, with the woman who came out on Facebook and was talking about how we all exist in an echo chamber of um, whatever we think. The nature of social media is we have our views, we have friends who share our views. For the most part, people share our views, and then we go onto social media where we interact with other people who share our views, and we get on our news feed the views that basically mirror what we have. And we all of us, wherever we stand, exist in a bit of an echo chamber. We exist where if somebody feels very differently than us, then they're wrong. So we really have to be, so I mean, it's just an interesting, the first kind of, this is a little bit relevant for the first part of our Mishnah, which is, you probably won't be comfortable like opening your home necessarily, but it's not, if you're treating it only academically, that's Greek. That is truly like a Greek philosophical worldview. Bring it in, allow it to challenge you. You'll only be able to transfer the flame if you get close. So that's number one. That's the first part of the Mishnah, which is to resist compartmentalization or separating between aspects of your life, and reframing your Judaism as everything you learn, taking it inside of yourself, allowing it to affect you, enrich you, and change you. So that's the first part of our Mishnah. Let your house be a meeting place for the sages. Julie, if you would go down, please. And then the second part of our Mishnah is sit at the dust of their feet. Okay. Behede mitabeg ba'afar raglehem. Sit at the dust of their feet. Now, the best way to understand this, first of all, we have to know the Hebrew. What it really says is wrestle at the dust of their feet. So there's really, there's two qualities that we have to really be very careful to avoid. Chances are you might relate to one of them more than the other, but there's two character traits that keep you from really, really learning and growing and connecting to teachers and really bringing it in a really alive way into your life. And they really are pride, which we're going to discuss, and timidity, shyness. It says, I think it's in Pirkei Avos, and I've thought about this a lot because I can relate to this one, that a shy person cannot learn. That if you allow your social dis-ease or your nervousness or your self-consciousness or your story about yourself, I don't think they like me, I don't think I'm important enough, I don't think they see me. If you let your general self-consciousness, timidity, shyness dictate your behavior, it will keep you from learning. I've thought about, so I think it was Stephen who said last class, he said, I don't see you, Stephen, but you said something like, you can't be a role model if you're hiding. I think that's what you said.
If you're a role model if you're invisible.
If you're invisible, you can't be a role model if you're invisible. So Pirkei Avos says it a little differently. It says a shy person cannot learn. Yes, they can. A shy person can learn a lot. Yes, they can. But you can't be a role model if you're invisible. And if you allow your shyness to dictate your behavior, you're going to stop yourself from experiencing many, many things. You know, I have this all the time. I don't want to, I feel like it's the Alley show and I don't really like that, but I'll just say since I've got the floor and then we'll open it up. I'm really a shy person. This is so relevant. Today, after my Ulpan, after my 4.5 hour Hebrew class, I had free time. So I said, you know, I'm going to walk around Rehavia. Rehavia is where it's where the Ulpan is. It is this fabulous, gorgeous neighborhood. Let's say it's like the Evanston of Jerusalem. It's like green and beautiful, beautiful homes. I mean, Menachem Begin hid there before he became Golda Meir lived there, Levi Eshkol, I mean, all the politics, all the beauty, all the culture, all the art, all the food, just wonderful. So I see there's this place called the Artist's House. It's this beautiful, like Ottoman building with just beautiful plantings and gorgeous tables outside. And there's all these posters for these incredible galleries, and it just looks magnificent. So I look, and there's a door in front of me. And I said, oh, I really want to go in here. Oh, but I don't know. I mean, do you think you could just walk in? Oh, do I speak Hebrew well enough to go in? Well, can I tell them I want to? I think I'm not going to go in. I don't think I'm going to go in. And I continued to walk. And then as I was writing this class, I was thinking, wow, I could have seen, I mean, God willing, I still will do it. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. But I missed the Artist's House because of some sort of narrative that kept me from learning. Like I took seriously my constricted, timid thinking. And because I really trusted in that, or I gave that dominion over my behavior, I really lost a chance to potentially see magnificent things in this Artist's House. So the story's not done. I'll get to the Artist's House. But the point is that pride, okay, we know a very arrogant person can't learn. They can't let anything in. Their cup is full. There's no room for more. We all know that. But I think for those of us who do struggle with timidity, I think that it's important to understand how much it potentially can inhibit growth and learning. It also has beautiful sides. There's a wonderful book called Quiet. I can't remember Susan, I can't remember her last name, where she writes about the power of introversion. It's a really interesting book. But the point is, we cannot let timidity keep us from growing. So sit at the dust of their feet means get in there with them. It doesn't, I don't know why they use the word sit in the book, but they do. But it really means wrestle with them. Mitavek comes from the word squirm or wrestle. And what that really means is get in there with them, debate with them, struggle with them, share what's hard for you. Just remember, don't look at them with such reverence that you don't take initiative. In other words, take in what they're saying, do anything to have them in your home, bring it all in, but don't be afraid also to challenge them and to question them and to share what your struggles are. And I think what this is really talking about is healthy ego versus unhealthy ego. If we didn't have an ego, we wouldn't be human. So the ego is very healthy in some respects. The healthy ego lets us bring in people who are much more learned with us, sit at their feet and taking what they have to say and wrestle with what they have to say. Be an active learner. Don't sit passively and hide because of your fears, but really get in there with them, wrestle with them, engage with them in vigorous exchange, get in there with them. But at the same time, sit at the dust of their feet, which is recognize that you have things to learn. And this is not just from the sages. This is also true in our time when we all exist in the echo chamber of like-minded people, which is allow yourself to learn from a host of differing opinions. be curious and be ready to acknowledge multiple perspectives and multiple realities. It's not exactly what this is talking about, but what I think this is largely talking about is the role of ego. If you are so proud, and we all have a little bit of unhealthy arrogance, this happens all the time, where, you know, where we think some groups are just ridiculous, they've got it wrong, we know what's right, we understand the balance better. You know, to be honest, there are certain group, you know, in Israel, there's sounds so funny, but there's so many Jews. So like there's so many different kinds of ways of being Jewish. And sometimes I find myself judgmental of certain kinds of people, and I find myself like giving sort of typecasting them. And that's a false pride. That's a lack of curiosity. That's the ego in the wrong direction, which is that like I'm not open to what you have to share or what you think about the world. So we want to resist the false ego, but we don't want to be so egoless that we don't get in the game and bring Jewish wisdom and knowledge and teachers actively into our homes and our lives. I want to leave enough time for sharing and talking, so I want to go through the third one, but I think it is also very interesting that it says, so sit or wrestle or squirm in the dust of their feet. So the nature of dust is that it's just sort of in the air. It's funny. We had in Jerusalem, there was this crazy, the last 2 days ago, there was this crazy dust storm. Like it was this, we woke up in the morning and there was so much fog. You couldn't see, you could barely see in front of you. It was a crazy dust storm. And then the next day, like all the cars, everything outside was just covered with a layer of dust. I'd never seen anything like that. But the nature of dust is that it leaves its mark. And this is also very important. Like you just feel it. You can feel it in the air. You know, it tickles your throat. It's all over your table. And I think that something that's relevant here is if you are a person who starts reading books, who has Torah classes in their home, who lets it into their home, who takes it in, who opens their mind enough to listen, even if it creates tension for them, even if they don't understand everything. If you take an active role in your learning, then it's like it even if you don't understand it, hypothetically, it rubs off. It will leave its mark. It will leave its mark. It will just leave its mark on you. So sit at the dust of their feet means don't let the ego make you too proud that you don't have reverence and learn from them, but don't be so proudless, don't be so without ego that you allow self-consciousness or a sense of self as less than, or a timidity or a shyness or an unwillingness to break out of your comfort zone. Don't let that keep you from growing, from changing, from exposing yourself to different people. It also, and I'm going through this, I want to leave enough time for discussion in the hour, because I know some people have to leave the minute the hour is over, so I want to make sure we leave a good amount of time for discussion within the hour. This also is a reference to what's called Shimush Chachamim, which is a little bit hard for us to understand today. But in the olden days, there was tremendous value in serving the sages, in not just learning Torah from them, but serving them. And while serving them, learning, like, how did they speak? What did they speak about? Just the idea of learning how their whole lives were lived, not just what they academically taught. This is really something that we've taken a huge beating with in our culture today, which is there's so many times a person has a public persona and then a very difficult or untrustworthy private persona. And there's almost like a division between the two. But Jewishly, we are a whole person. All aspects of oneself ideally are unified. So when a person is Meshamesh et HaChachamim, they serve the sages, what that means is they're privy to their whole lives, what they do with how they use their words, how they treat their loved ones, who they are, listening to them up close and personal. So we see that the first two out of the three of our Mishnah are get in there. Don't be shy. Take it in, allow you, wrestle with it, but get in the game. Don't let your narrative keep you from learning, but also don't let your narrative close you off to learning something that's new or somewhat challenging, which is a real lesson for today, because we really, most of us have opinions, and we surround ourselves both virtually, digitally, and in real life with people who agree with us. But this is saying something totally different. This is saying be open to a spectrum of perspectives. Whether or not you agree with them or not, you can learn so much from them. This is about being active, and this is about being allowing yourself to sit, to not always be at the top of the hierarchy, but recognize when there's wisdom to learn, but not passively. Wrestle with it, be an active part of it. And the last of the three is Veheve Shota B'tzama et Divreihem, and drink in their words with thirst. What does this mean? It's funny because Torah is always compared to water. There is a constant comparison of Torah being compared to water. We don't always realize it, but like water, do you know how much you need it? Do you understand how much you need it? Because the nature of something that you partake in all the time is that you get used to it. I mean, I remember even when we moved to Jerusalem, the first week, I mean, even though it was such a crazy transition, but everything that I was seeing was just so, it was so incredible and so amazing. But, after a while, it becomes where you live. So it's really cautioning against when you need something and you partake in it, don't let yourself be quenched. So be continuously thirsty as you drink. So don't get habituated. Recognize how much you need it and always crave it, be passionate, want it. Here's the funny thing about Torah, and I think we can all relate to this. The less we know, the less we desire it. The less we know, the more we think we don't want it or need it. So let me say that a little bit. I'll say it again. The less we know, the less we understand how much we need it, and the less we want it. Phrased positively, the more we know we need it, and the more we desire it. So the more you drink, the thirstier you are, from a metaphor perspective. The more you drink, the thirstier you are. The less you drink, the more quenched you are. If a person never learns, they think they know what it is. They're complacent with the narrative they have of it. They don't think they need it. Right? Hannah's saying, I agree. Right. You'll tell us after. We're going to open it up in 4 minutes. They don't think they need it. They think they understand it, and they don't crave it. But a person who learns not just passively, not in a Greek way, not just academically, but a person I'll make a plug for the Israel trip. A person who comes on the Israel trip, hint, hint, pressure, pressure. A person who comes on the Israel trip does not leave the Israel trip saying, remember when Chevy Chase went, on European vacation. Remember that movie where he checks the Mona Lisa and he checks Big Ben, he goes to the thing and he checks it, right? When you come to Israel, you won't check it. If you really come to Israel and you meet the people and you see what's going on here and you learn not only the history, but the present reality and the future of Israel, and you see what's going on intellectually and creatively and artistically, and if you see what's happening and you soak it in, you want more. If you don't come to Israel, then you don't know what it is and you don't want it. So this is what this is saying, is the nature of getting in the game is that you want more of what the game has to offer. But the nature of resisting getting in the game means you not only do you not want what it has to offer, but you don't think you need it in the first place. So this goes back to timidity. If you don't allow yourself to go beyond your comfort zone and push yourself into something and see what it is, not only will you learn about it, but you'll never even know that you wanted it at all. So that's, I think, what it means when the Talmud tells us a shy person doesn't learn. Doesn't mean, of course, shy people learn. But if you stop yourself from getting in the game, you will not realize how much you need the game and how much you want the game. The more you drink, the thirstier you are. And that's why when you see someone who is not interested in what you have to say about Judaism or whatever, it doesn't mean they're bad people. It means that they haven't drank, not the Kool-Aid, but they haven't drank from the water of the Torah, because that's the nature of spiritual thirst. The more you drink, the thirstier you are. If you come to Israel, you'll want more of Israel. If you don't come at all, you won't want it. So, and you'll think that you don't need it. So we're going to summarize it and open it up for the group. The three pieces of our Mishnah, segments of our Mishnah, are really how to be an active learner. Bring it in to your life. Do not be a dilettante, or let's phrase it positively. Bring it more holistically into all aspects of your material life. How does this affect my speech? How does my learning affect my relationships? How does learning affect my relationship to money? How does my learning affect my relationship to my children? How does my relationship to my learning affect my relationship to time, to my character traits? What would it mean to bring it in a deeper way in one sphere of my existence, just a little bit more? Don't think that's so easy. One of the reasons Jews Hellenized on a very, very, very many Jews during this time, exact time where our Mishnah stands, many Jews became very Greek. They assimilated into Greek culture, largely to a certain degree, at least partially. First of all, it was a lot sexier. It was a lot more exciting. It was a lot more, you'd be much more accepted into society, just like in Germany, just like in America. But also because it didn't demand anything of them. If I learn purely academically and intellectually, then I don't need to change, right? If what you are on the outside doesn't demand shifting and changing on the inside, then I can partake of the outside and I can be left alone in my own little fiefdom on the inside, like leave me alone. And we are cautioned about this fragmented, compartmentalized existence. Don't serve God on the outside alone. Bring it in. Also, we learn, in summary, if you want to grow spiritually, it's really about engagement in real life, in real life situations, and that's really what it means to be mashamish et hachachamim, to serve them. It means see how they live, see how they talk, see how they speak, see how what they do in their leisure time, see how they treat their relationships. Surround yourself, be proactive, be an active learner, be humble and recognize that There's so much wisdom to be had if you get out of your echo chamber and allow yourself to be exposed to new ways of thinking. But don't be so humble that you don't get involved and proactive and passionately involved in learning. So you have to want it. You have to allow it to fill your life. You have to resist compartmentalizing, which again is very seductive, because compartmentalized Judaism means it doesn't have to change you at all. And there's a huge part of us that doesn't want to change. As my favorite therapist, Harriet Lerner, if you haven't read her book, buy it on Amazon. She has 2 books that are fantastic. She has The Dance of Intimacy and The Dance of Anger. I don't know if you guys have read them, but they're fantastic. In one of them, I think it's The Dance of Intimacy, she says there are 2 things that are true about change. I've said this before. 1, everybody wants to change. And 2, everybody wants to stay exactly the same, right? We are always in tension with wanting to grow and change and to stay exactly the same. But this is telling us change is life, and you have to jump in order to change. You have to want it. You have to be proactive. So these are 3 insights about the kind of the Jewish approach to learning. And I think if you, I think just instead of just opening it up to the group now, I would just ask like a more pointed question, which is, I want to phrase this right. How can we bring it in a deeper way? What makes us reluctant to bring it in a deeper way? What makes us resist bringing our Judaism into our lives in a deeper way? And what's exciting about it? I'm just throwing a million questions at you, but this is really, really about how to acquire Torah, how to bring it in a transformational way, and learning without transformation from a Judaic perspective isn't learning. Learning with transformation in mind is the purpose of learning. Even if you were to say from this class, what's one thing that I'm taking from this class that I'm going to integrate into my daily life, into my existence, into my thinking process, into my relationships? What's one thing that would be called like learning or getting in the game or active learning from a Jewish perspective? So let's open it up now to the group with our last 8 to 10 minutes.
Hi,
Julie, you want to turn off the recording now for people? Yeah.
real quick, because I'm gonna have to.
I just want to interject that I think that some people enjoy this part, so in the recording,
Okay, then keep
you
going.
know, so if you don't
Yeah.
want to be recorded, then maybe let us know if you want to
Okay.
talk and they could go later or something, but I know some people like to listen to the discussion.
Anyway, thank you. It was excellent. I really learned a lot from you, Ellie. And I want to say that at Tehillim, which is Psalms, I used to really not like it. And then when the COVID hit, we started doing Tehillim as a group for my shul, and I really started really liking it. So my question about Tehillim is, even though I'm fluent in Hebrew and all that, I don't always understand what I'm reading. Is that okay? Can you explain that?
Right. If you don't understand what you're reading, imagine how everybody else feels.
No, but that's why I'm asking the question. So when you read Tehillim, is it because somehow, now I really like reading it? Well, it's very different than modern Hebrew. I mean, it really is.
Yes, it
So
is.
the question is that when you do, like I read every single day, I do the birthday. My son is 33, I do Psalm 34. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I do my birthday. And I started doing this. And when I read it, does it make sense what I'm saying?
So what you're questioning or thinking is it okay is there value in reading if I don't understand what I'm reading?
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. And so it's a great question. It's probably a question that every single person in this room has asked themselves, right? Am I right? That you've all asked yourself this probably, like, is there value? So the answer is yes, there is value, because the words themselves are spiritually very powerful. It is more powerful if you seek to understand some of it or read some of it in English so that you have some understanding. But I just will say that the nature of the liturgy of the Siddur of Psalms is that the words themselves have spiritual power. And sometimes when if I read Psalms, I think, okay, King David wrote this. He wrote this with this spirit. And so I don't totally understand what I'm reading, but I understand that, like, the spirit with which he wrote it. But the words themselves have power. But yes, it's better to understand. There's nothing wrong with praying in English. Like the old joke says, God understands all languages. So you should pray in English, but you can also know that if you're praying in Hebrew and you don't understand what you're saying, the words themselves are very, very powerful and spiritually transformative, even when you don't understand. So they're both true.
And also the other thing is that I also found that I grew up very secular, but now that I'm really involved, I cannot get enough of Judaism and learn.
That's the point. That's the point of the third part of the Mishnah.
Right.
You get thirstier when you drink. And if you're not thirsty, which we've all gone through times, I also have, where you're just not spiritually curious. You're not learning, you're not motivated, you think you're not interested, it actually turns you off quite a bit. You're sort of removed, you're a little bit cynical. It is to a certain degree, it is a reflection of not drinking. It is the best thing you can do for cynicism, apathy, disinterest is to get in the game and learn, because you are thirsty when you drink. You are not thirsty when you don't. So it's a good insight into your apathy for Torah, because we've all gone through, probably yesterday or today, we've all gone through apathy toward Torah to a large degree, or cynicism, whatever. It's a large degree of the nature of not being thirsty is that you're not drinking. It's a different way to look at thirst. I wrote, this was just a saying that I saw somewhere. Appetite comes with eating. So that's one of the reasons that we don't want Torah, is because of our lack of engagement. It's the same for Israel. It's just what Hannah's saying. You'll the more you touch and connect to and learn from and get in the game with the land of Israel, the more you want it. It's the same thing, just like what Hannah was saying.
I have to say one other thing about Israel. So, I grew up in Israel, then I went a million times, and then my synagogue here had a mission, and I said, I'm not going. Why would I want to go? But my friend said, oh, you got to come with us, Hannah. I did go, and it was a totally different experience. Right. And honestly, right. It was the best experience I've ever had in Israel, because it was spiritual. Yeah. And we went to Tzfat, which I've never been to. I've been to, but not. And we studied rabbis in Israel. It was like, I cannot say enough how I agree with what you just taught us.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thanks, Hannah. Bye, Adrian. I'll see you very soon. I can't wait to see you. Anybody else have any thoughts, insights?
I was going to say that I think COVID hurt a lot, this idea, because I think it's very hard for people to get back into going to the synagogue every Shabbos. I think it's difficult for a lot of synagogues.
It is.
So they're not, because it's been years that they haven't come together every Shabbos, and a lot of regulars kind of drifted away. Or,
Carolyn, they didn't drift away, but they're coming now on Zoom. They've discovered like
Well,
the
that's
Zoom
what-
Yeah, but
option.
you know,
Yeah, that's what I think. So many people can't, if it weren't for Zoom and COVID, I don't think I would have learned as much as I did last year.
No way.
I guess I was saying the community of a service was, for me,
Yeah,
was, I missed it. I mean, I
right.
went on Zoom, but the physical contact with other people, maybe because I live alone, I really missed it.
Carolyn, you're right, because if you think about it in this Mishnah, to Carolyn's point, so it's all physical. It's physical. Let your house be a meeting place for sages. Of course, they didn't have Zoom in those days, but sit in the dust of their feet, drink in their words. It is to Carolyn's point, and of course, we live in such a strange new reality. We live in a new world, but there's something about physical proximity. This is also speaking about the necessity, to Carolyn's point, of physical closeness and proximity. We're seeing something so unusual today, but this is reminding us there's something that cannot be replaced.
I can share with you, even someone who, like for me, someone who doesn't live alone, over the last year and a half, I've been more removed from community, and I have, missed it tremendously. And it's interesting because I feel like when COVID hit, while Judaism is supposed to be kind of like the anchor, I feel like it went out the window for me more than like it should have, because I felt like every day felt like the structure of the days were like, there was no structure. I want to say every day felt like Shabbat, which it didn't, but it was like, I wasn't like, oh, Saturday I'm home. It was like, oh, Monday I'm home. Oh, Tuesday I'm home. Oh, Wednesday, so so it was like, I lost the structure and the routine of like lighting the candles on time. And it's like, I needed more structure to like have that structure back. And
Very amorphous. Yep. I hear that, Jess. Very, very much. There's something about structure, community. Katie, yeah. Oh, Katie, you're muted.
I know. Hi. I have a question about something that you said. I'm just unsure what it means as a learner when you're saying that when we should serve our sages, and get to know them, what they do personally, publicly, and meaning like our teachers. What does that do for me as a learner? How does that help me as a learner?
Okay, so serving the sages is a little bit hard to understand in our day. So let's just enlarge your question a little bit. You're saying, what do I get as a learner from watching? Serving the sages is a reference to watching them live their daily lives.
So I
Like
can
not
learn.
just coming to study hall and learning from them,
Mhm.
but getting into their lives. And you're asking, what does that have? How does that affect me as a learner?
I think I understand it more. I don't think I understood it correctly when you were talking about it. I think if you're observing and learning how to live more like them, then it helps you live and actively live what you learned.
Correct. I think that's what it means. Does anybody else have insights into that? What that means? Why? It's also very elusive in our day and age, because it definitely doesn't mean like do Rabbi David's laundry or Rabbi Gadi's or Eve's, shine Eve's shoe. It does not mean that. But does anybody have any insights into what Katie's like, or anything really? Because I think Katie, you touched on what it really is.
Yeah, I think when you first mentioned it, you were talking about how like today people have like a personal persona and a professional persona. And so if we learn, I think I was just applying it too much to today, because that wouldn't be a good thing to learn from. So
Right.
I understand now though.
Okay. Who else? Last thoughts, anybody? Well, I won't say who. For anybody who struggles with shyness, and there's a good side to shyness. There really is a wonderful side to shyness. But I've been thinking a lot because, for me, I'm learning the language, but we're newcomers, we're new immigrants, we're greeners, and so I'm always like, do I want to go in? Do I want to ask this? I'm always kind of wrestling with my shyness. But for me, a big theme of this class, of this particular Mishnah, is where is my story, my narrative, or my self-consciousness, or my comfort zone even. I see that, Katie. Where is it keeping me from growing? What am I closing myself off to because where is my comfort zone keeping me from experiencing life in its fullest way? What am I not learning because I'm staying in my comfort zone? This is a Mishnah that is extremely like the verbs, especially in Hebrew, they're like proactive. They're like wrestle, thirst, drink, make your house a meeting place, get in the game, be proactive, go for it. So for those of you, and I'm putting myself in here, who struggle with that, where might it be closing you off to possibility in your life?
Wow.
Someone said, wow.
Me, your South African friend.
Oh, Jen.
Wow.
Hi, Wowzer. Miss you. I can't wait to see you.
Thank you.
When I see you, I'm going to give you a big wow.
For sure. Thank you, Ellie. I'm going to get out of here.
Wait, hold on, Jen. I know you're going to get mad at me.
Yes.
Yes, you're already mad at me. I just want to say about Jen that I won't say a lot, Jen, because I know you don't, it's not nice because you don't like it. So I won't do a lot, but I just want to say about Jen that our whole story about meeting Jen, we met Jennifer because she pushed herself to get out of her comfort zone.
For sure.
And
100%
come
sure.
downstairs. She was alone in a hotel, foreign country, and she saw that people were setting up for Shabbat. She didn't know what was going on. She pushed herself out of her comfort zone, went down to the lobby, probably was quite embarrassed, but asked what was going on. And that's how Jen met, and Jen came into the L'Chaim Center family. So it's an example of what we close ourselves off if we don't try. Yeah.
It was such a hard thing to do. And I thank Hashem every single day, Ellie, that I don't even know if it was guts. I think I couldn't take another day alone. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jen. Thank you for going beyond your comfort zone.
Not easy.
No.
Thank you. See you soon.
Yes, I can't wait.
Uh,
Okay, anybody else here? Hi, Stephen.
I think that we're all limit ourselves much more than we need to. Is I think in all honesty, we're more self-conscious than people are conscious of us. I don't think people really pay that much attention usually. I don't think they care that much. And even if they do, it's usually just a very, very short interaction, particularly with a stranger. So I guess what I'm saying is we limit ourselves more than we really need to, because the consequences that we fear aren't really there.
Very powerful what you just said.
Uh,
Did everyone hear
I-
that? Yeah.
Can you tell that to my 13-year-old daughter, because she's embarrassed by her mom all the time,
Amen for about everything, everything.
and no one's paying attention. Right?
All right, I'll talk to her.
Someone was going to say something. Carolyn, was it you?
Yeah, I was going to say, when I started learning about Judaism and studying, my shyness, I think, helped because I didn't fight and battle everything. About the secular world and the paradigm I was in, because I was afraid to speak. So I listened and
Mm.
I understood the paradigm because I was listening. Because otherwise I'm battling, oh, what's the mojito? Why do you have to separate? I'm a women's liber and
Yeah.
which came to my mind, but I guess like what you said, I was too shy or afraid to actually open my mouth. So then I was listening. So it's the first time when I think back on it that I was happy I was shy.
Oh, interesting. So your shyness kept you in a receptive mode.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, it's like every character trait. It's like a dot. It's like a coin. It has a shadow side and a positive side. It has a positive and negative. It has a dual nature. So shyness allows us to listen more, to hear more, to not be in resistance, to be more makabel, to be more of a receiver. But the shadow side of it is that exactly what Stephen was saying. We're prohibiting, what's the word? We're inhibiting so much of our potential really for no reason. So it's like everything, it has a positive and a negative. It has a dual nature. So that's an interesting point about the positive side of shyness, Carolyn. Katie, where are you? Where's Katie Bushala right now? Not Northbrook.
That's my
Where's-
question exactly. Where is she?
I'm in San Diego.
Ooh,
Yeah,
serious.
my dad had surgery a little over a week ago, and I've been here to help, and it's been a little longer. There were some complications, so that's why I'm in my pajamas. We were up till 2:30 in the morning last night, and it's 2 hours
Oh.
earlier here. So sorry I didn't get dressed.
Is,
But at
is
least
everything,
at least it's 80 degrees and sunny. So
are things okay?
yeah, he had a small cancer on one of his kidneys, and they thought they could go and just do a small, partial removal of one of the kidneys. And so they did the initial surgery and he was fine. And then several hours later, he was hemorrhaging. So they had to go in and do emergency surgery and remove the whole kidney. And so he's fine, but he was in the hospital. He just got home yesterday. I was supposed to come home yesterday. We were thinking it'd be faster, but I'm coming home in a couple days, and my brother's coming down to help. So, but it's beautiful here. I'm just tired and
We all wish him a refuah shalema.
Yes,
full
thank
and
you.
speedy
No,
recovery.
he's over the hump and on the mend. So yeah,
Definitely.
so I'm sitting outside enjoying the weather. The
Right,
benefits of
everyone's
the
probably
weather.
thinking, don't rush home so fast.
I know.
Look at
I'm
you.
kind of thinking that too.
There's a palm tree in your background, Katie.
I know. I
Snowing right
know.
now In Deerfield, Illinois.
I know. I've been talking to my husband and my daughter, and they're like, it's freezing. I'm like, it's so beautiful here.
Anyone else? Anyone else?
Allie, I wanted to tell you something like kind of funny, but I'm outing myself. When you use the word greener, it was the first time I realized that it's not said Greena. Because my
Rena. She was from, where's she from?
my grandparents were from Poland and they spoke Yiddish. And when you're a newcomer from a country, you're a Greena. And when you said greener, I was like, oh my gosh.
Greener. green, I don't know, I'll ask around about
No,
the
I
Yiddish
did.
for greener.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, it's like when, I've heard certain Yiddish
Agrina.
my whole life or certain accents my whole life. And I didn't know it any other way.
Now, I don't know why they use the term greener. Does anybody know? I don't know. I don't know what the meaning is. But just for the record, yes, people from New York don't pronounce my mother says for R. Right, Carolyn? My mother says, like and then she says R for like she calls the sugar Splenda, she calls it Splendor. And then she'll say for R, right, Carolyn? Is that
Right,
right?
absolutely.
Well, my in-laws are from Boston, and I had to explain to Zoe that when she looks at herself in a reflection, it's not a mirror.
Right, exactly, a mirror.
Not a
A Greener. So Greener might be the same thing. But I'm gonna, if anybody can find out the meaning of the word greener, it would be much appreciated.
I'm gonna ask my mom. She's told me before.
I don't know what it is, but I certainly feel like one.
Well, when you're new at something, you're green. So maybe it's just you're new.
Why?
maybe.
Why are you green when you're new? You're unripe? Or something? What is it? Why?
I don't know. It's an old.
Yes, you're
I mean,
unripe.
Why
You're
are
not
you green
ripe
when
yet.
you're new? Why
There
are
you go.
new?
Maybe it's that. Yeah.
You're not ripe yet.
Not ripe yet.
That's it.
Then you get brown and spotty eventually, like all of us do.
And then you die. Okay, this is a little maudlin, but anyway, greener. Okay. But you can't let being a greener stop you from going into the artist's house. That's my lesson for today. So hopefully by the time I see you guys in Chicago, I will have visited the artist's house. And when you guys come to Chicago, to Israel, we'll go together. All right.
Are you and David going to be able to help us with a bat mitzvah in a few years?
Oh, with pleasure. Cannot wait. That's great. Jess, that's great.
Yeah.
With joy and pleasure.
Awesome.
All right, everybody. It's been wonderful being with everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
See you
Kelly.
soon.
Thank you.
Can't
So
wait to see you
interesting.
guys
Bye,
in
everyone.
person.
Yeah. Safe
Live and in
travel.
person. Physical proximity. Physical proximity. Okay.
Right.
Bye,
Right.
everybody.
Thank you.
Safe travel.
Don't
Bye.
knock physical proximity. Goodbye.